Hey YouTube, Coppersan here. Can you believe it? MapleStory Global is turning 20 years this year, a monumental accomplishment for any MMO. But how did MapleStory get so far? And how did it turn into this therapeutic habit-creating machine that it is today? That's what we're finding out in this video. This is a bit more of a casual talk video where I just talk about Maple while doing my dailies, by the way. So MapleStory started out as an MMORPG focused on exploring a slow grind, very slow grind, and emphasized playing with others with its huge maps, party quests, and players often needed to travel to different continents, which usually took a good 15 minutes, and during this time social interaction was the only gameplay. But over time the way players used MMOs shifted, with players interacting less with each other as social media grew, like they started talking more on TeamSpeak, social media, MSN, and eventually Discord. And to counter this trend, MapleStory had to keep reinventing itself, adding new content, new goals, new stories, and new classes. Players are guaranteed 2 big updates a year, with smaller updates that still bring some form of new content and events every 6 weeks or so. This constant string of updates has kept the game fresh and up to date, and while not everyone has always liked the changes that the bigger updates brought, it's a surefire way to get players back into the game while also appealing to newer players. Think about bigger revamps for existing classes. The class roster itself has currently over 40 different classes to pick from, but most importantly, it's the endgame content that has been added over the last few years that has turned MapleStory into this habit-enforcing game. In MapleStory there are many different smaller upgrades that can be done to your character, with the most important ones being the 5th and 6th job advancement skills and your arcane and sacred symbols. 5th and 6th job skills cannot be upgraded by simply putting a skill point in them. Instead, players need to farm items that can then be used to unlock or upgrade skills, and the higher the skill level, the more of these items are needed. This helps MapleStory retain its players, as it really just stretches out its content, but it also gives players always something to work towards. One of the main things that I personally find fun in Maple is you can just play for 30 minutes a day and you'll get stronger. It creates a very easy and fun habit, which is exactly what MapleStory is so good at, creating habits, and you don't even need to be that efficient. Also, grinding is sometimes just really therapeutic, and I haven't really found any other game where I can just jump in and shut my brain off and grind for a bit, like in MapleStory. The other habit that MapleStory pushes on you is your daily quests. These give a huge chunk of EXP and reward arcane and sacred symbols, which will gauge you from dealing more damage against higher level monsters and even boss monsters in those higher level areas. This is also where the many events come into play. These usually reward you with a ton of daily items and upgrade items, which keeps you playing even when there isn't a bigger update. There also are special upgrade events that only happen a few times a year, which is a bigger goal that players can work towards. MapleStory's huge roster of over 40 classes also all contribute to your account. Your other characters can defeat boss monsters to generate income and resources, and once you're maxed out on one character, the next one is already waiting in line. Usually combined with events that make your new character grow extremely fast, called burning events. There also are various systems in place that provide unique buffs depending on the character you created for your other characters. So you're not just focusing on one character in MapleStory, you're building up your entire account. So on each character you also have to do your dailies, you have to level them up, you have to upgrade your gear and things like that. You can just keep going and going. MapleStory classes are also mostly unique. There are some classes that are a bit more tanky, some deal a bit more damage, and some have a bit more healing spells, but overall every class can hold their own while still remaining unique in their role and playstyle. The Cain class, which is very difficult to start, has numerous skills that can be stringed together and has a chain grappling hook that allows him to swing across the map, kinda like Spider-Man, while the easier to play Explorer class, Ice Lightning Mage, is all about freezing its enemies and applying slows while using maybe 3 or 4 skills. And while some classes can look visually similar, that doesn't mean that their playstyle is similar. Some classes can be quite difficult to master, while others are simply one-button classes. There is something for everyone. You're really never done playing if you wanted to. You can just experiment and explore with so many classes, which I think definitely contributed to its longevity. Like, there's new classes being added every now and then, just refreshing the game's gameplay and also adding more story to the game as well. Additionally, MapleStory's art style is another thing that's kept it going throughout all these years. The sprites still look crisp and have their own unique style, something that is hard to pull off for a 20-year-old game. This goes also for the map design and background music, which is as timeless and iconic as ever. No area feels the same, and every BGM and monster design is carefully crafted, so nothing ever feels out of place. This is something that MapleStory does very well. MapleStory's core is all about grinding, bossing, and upgrading. And it has been so solid that for the last 8 years or so, just one gear set, the Arcane Umbra set, was endgame. with only recently newer gear being introduced so that up the playing field once again. And now that I think about it, there's actually an older set called the Fafnir set, which is also still a core part of your gear that you're using for like the longest time. So power creep is a thing, but it's very slow, which is something that other MMOs usually suffer from quite a bit, where there's like the next big thing always dropping like every 6 months or so. In MapleStory it's a very long and slow grind. So MapleStory is more of a marathon than a sprint, and developers know this well. Newer content and gear usually is extremely difficult to get for the average player, and then it gets easier over time. For example, right now the max level is level 300, but if a player reaches level 280, then that player has only completed 2% of the grind needed to reach max level. So by stretching out the goals, there's always something to do for players, even when there is some content drought, like when you're just in between those bigger updates. Another thing that I think definitely helped MapleStory survive for all these years is that it's more than just an old PC MMORPG. It's a lifestyle. I don't mean that very seriously, but they have had collabs with other brands for decades. They're actually way ahead of their time now that I think about it. Who remembers, for example, those old Slurpee collabs in the US and Sea? I found the old Sea commercial from when the Pirates were released. That was like 2008. So MapleStory's had collabs with brands and like crossover events and whatnot for the longest time. And to continue that trend, there also were multiple spin-off games, from mobile games to Nintendo DS games to more recently a platform where you can build your own games using MapleStory assets, and even a version of MapleStory that's on the blockchain. This has exposed more people to the brand than ever, and has probably converted one or two to also try out the actual main game. MapleStory, I think, also was pretty lucky to be a 2D MMORPG. There aren't that many 2D MMOs around that get this many updates and are this well crafted, especially the art style is something that holds up really nicely. Older competitors like Wonder King eventually shut down, even though that one is currently being revived, and while games like Elsword did see some good updates and changes over time as well, it never really caught up to the approachableness and likableness of MapleStory, I feel like, and in my own opinion the art style of MapleStory aged a lot better than Elsword did. MapleStory is also by no means a perfect game, but it sure as hell is a good game though, lasting throughout the decades, and probably thanks to the lockdowns from a few years ago combined with the huge updates that it has gotten during the time, it also managed to keep growing. And even though we the players change and get older, the game has also adjusted and updated to keep up with the ever-changing landscape that are both the MMOs and its player base. I think MapleStory players are a special kind of breed. Maplers are like very diligent and efficient and good at math, especially if you want to optimize in the end game. It's also a bit of a scary game, as it will have a lasting impact on you if you do really get hooked. Even for myself, MapleStory has had a probably bigger than I want to admit impact on my life. I met my wife in this game, and thanks to MapleStory I was able to do YouTube full time for a few years. I even picked up learning some Korean thanks to this game. It definitely helped me grow in more ways than I probably want to admit, and I definitely remain forever thankful to that. So that's also what I want to say with this video. Like, it's not a perfect game, but hey Maple, thank you for those 20 years and onwards to 20 more. And that's all I had for today. Thanks for listening, thanks for tuning in, and as always, many thanks to our members making these videos possible. Special thanks to Niels de Coninck, Raar, Maar, Waar, Sebastian, Hanøy, Caudimorda, Wiley, BackSpaceOTI, Ziggy, Flidiot, Knivesu, Cloudfix, Michael, Menchaca, Raythius, Betrayal1489, Sylvio, Neto, StrikerElk, Ryaiser, Aryu, PCGAMELIFE, The Passenger, maxBurnHeart, ScottyFlysFast, Only, Lordvasile, Spudsy, Dantevictory, Snufflepop, Quinn, Deweytran, Veke Botnet, Megu, The Wolfdrake, Matthew Dev, Groggo, GabrielEk, Knivesu, Max Mink, and Domi Kirch-nehammer. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe and happy mapling!